everybody, my name's Melinda Gallant, and I want to welcome you to another Cape Conversations. Look at these beautiful flowers. I wish they were mine, I really do, but they're not, unfortunately. However, we're going to talk today to a gentleman who knows all about hydrangeas, and we're going to talk about the Cape Cod Hydrangea Fest, and we're going to talk about heritage museums and gardens. Oh my gosh, we got so much to talk about. So come along, let's have another Cape Conversations. Well, I am so excited to have with me somebody who knows more about hydrangeas than anybody in the entire world, I think. And he's with Heritage Museums and Gardens, and he's very much a gentleman and a very nice guy. And that's why we have all these lovely hydrangeas behind me. Mr. Mal Condon. Mal, welcome to Cape Conversations.
Great to see you,
Melinda.
Melinda.
We've got a big table between us here.
We do.
It's huge.
How nice to have some very attractive Hydrangea macrophylla species here with us today.
Now, why are they macrophyllous?
Well, there's 6 major species commercially available. The most popular, and let me give you a couple of numbers.
Yeah.
Everybody likes numbers.
Yeah.
The number 2 woody ornamental produced in the US of A is hydrangeas. Produce about 22, 23 million plants a year. Can you imagine that?
Number 2, what's number 1?
Number 1?
Lilac.
Take a guess.
Lilacs.
No.
Oh.
Roses.
Oh, roses. Hello.
Right?
Hello. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But pretty good that hydrangeas are number 2.
Yeah.
So it's a big time ago. Anyway, of the 6 species, macrophylla accounts for probably 85% of that 22 million production. And it is the most popular because, as you can see, the extraordinary color range.
Oh, right.
And these are mop heads. This flower form is a mop head, meaning it's, you see, is totally contained. Lace caps, which we don't have any here, have an exterior ring of florets like this that are sterile, but the inside are the fertile seed capsules, and you see the bees working all over those. Right. That's the easy identifier. Where are the bees working? Yeah. Because the pollen there is so obvious and evident.
It's so funny. We bought 2 bushes. We have a little courtyard, and we put one in a pot, and we planted one, right? The one in the pot has, obviously maintained. We had no idea what we bought. In other words, we went into and it turned out it was what the second one was, with the lacy.
Was a lace cap? A lace cap.
With the lacy cap.
A lace cap, yeah.
Right, and everybody says, "Oh my God, one has gotten huge, and the other one is obviously small because it's in a pot." But it is. Everybody comments on how beautiful it was, and I didn't even know what it was until a friend of mine who knows a lot about plants.
Meaning the lace cap.
The lace cap, what it was. I had no idea. So far, so good.
Yeah, I think lace caps are very attractive. And actually, that was the original form.
Really?
Mop heads came later through hybridization. Some of them were produced, the plant produces sports every once in a while. It'll shoot off something different. And if you save that stem, then it's how they're all produced. It's a sexual propagation. In other words, they're produced from cuttings.
I see.
They're root cuttings. And then you've got, and a
do
cutting
you root
is a
them?
duplicate.
So you so could you cut a piece off of this and root it?
Oh, that's how it's done. That's how it's done. Commercially, that's how it's done. But the nice thing about these is they're all beautiful.
Yeah, they are.
I think they are.
Yeah.
Mop heads definitely prevail. There is no question about that. And in that lace cap mop head combination I told you about, macrophyllus being 85% more or less of that production. Of that 85%, mop heads probably account these days for another 85%.
Wow.
It's a highly dominant kind of a go. Anyway, the big thing is this. Always what we love is often the most difficult for us to produce.
Of course.
And this species
you want what you can't have.
That's right. And this species, unfortunately, is the least cold hardy.
I know, yeah.
So when we have our mixed winters, here's the key. They're native to maritime Japan and the other islands of that area of Asia. And so they like temperance. So they don't like it hot, they don't like it cold, they don't like sudden change. Well, unfortunately, we're pretty good here, but we do have some of those undesirable characteristics.
Yeah.
And as a result, we have years of poor flowering. This year, it's a bit mixed again. We are better than we've had maybe the last couple of years, but certainly no bonanza.
Yeah.
Some bushes look very good. That right to your left, that variety is the original Endless Summer, which sort of started this whole craze on the rebloomers and those that have good winter hardiness. At Heritage this year, that particular plant, and we have a great number of them there, is spectacular.
Wow.
They're just
I'll
over
go
the
over and
top.
look at it. Yeah.
They're just over the top.
So everybody should get there and see it.
Yeah, well, they should, and it's really a good thing. And these others that you see here, this is a plant called Paris. It's a City Line series plant, and they're very nice. They're smallish. You mentioned about growing in a container. These are well suited to that. And macrophylla should be grown in containers a lot of times because you can control the winter.
Right, right,
You can give the plant some protection.
right.
And that's really the key to good results. So, and you see the color ranges that we talked about.
Right.
I think this pink's quite attractive.
It is beautiful.
Blue is the most common, and everybody says, "Oh, I got to have blue."
How do they get that blue? Some people put something in the soil to make it blue.
You do. Remember they used to tell you the story about you put a bucket full of old nails.
Old nails. That's what I had heard. Yeah.
Well,
is that true?
That's not true.
Oh, okay.
What gives you blue? You have to have aluminum in the soil.
Oh.
And most of our soils here are pretty good for aluminum.
Yeah.
But the aluminum is only available at low pH. In other words, if you're acidic conditions,
Yeah.
more acidic you are, the more the aluminum is available to the
Gotcha.
plant. So when it takes it up, you get blue. If the soil is sweeter, like you grow your veggie gardens, then you're going to favor pink. That's just the way it works.
Just the way it works.
Right. So it's
All right.
aluminum. Everybody thinks it's
iron.
well, or they just think it's
Lead.
you have to be acidic. Well, if you don't have aluminum, I don't care how acidic you get, you never get a blue. So you need aluminum. Most of our soils are pretty good. We don't have too much trouble with
You
that.
don't have to do that. So all those people out there that are throwing nails into their hydrangea gardens, don't bother.
Yeah.
Doesn't work.
Well, and then the nuisance if you got to go and dig in the garden again.
Right, and you step on a nail.
Step on a nail. So
Right.
so
Then
so
you have to go
don't
get your tetanus
don't do
shot.
that. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
So let's back up a little bit. So where are you originally from?
Well, we all have our great story, don't we? Where we're
Yeah,
from.
yeah.
Okay.
I'm from Ohio.
Okay, well, I'm from New Jersey. I was
Oh,
born
there
in
you
New
go.
Jersey. Yeah, we moved around some. My dad was a railroadman,
Oh, yeah.
and we lived in a couple of places. And but New Jersey was basically our home.
Yeah.
And I stayed there for a long while. And I'm an engineer by education.
Oh, my gosh.
Horticulture was just something secondary that came
You just
along.
like doing it.
Well, here's the thing. It's interesting about how disciplines go, but horticulture and engineering have a lot of similarities in terms of requirements, and I sort of fit for both.
Yeah.
And horticulture has always sort of been my second life, if you will. You know, we all do something we need to do, right? But there's something we like to do, and that's where I was with it. And so that's kind of how that came about. Largely self-taught, although I did do a little studying on the horticultural side. And I've always been a plantsman. My grandfather, you say, where's it come from? My grandfather was an old-timey guy. He was a railroadman like my dad was, who followed him. But in the old days, you know, he had a property where they lived. They had a narrow lot, but it went from one street to the next. And so in those days, he planted this enormous vegetable garden.
Oh, wow.
And that's how I got my start.
Beans.
Yeah, you know, and I thought my grandfather was great.
Yeah.
You know, as typically as you should. Anyway, one time, I must have been, I don't know, 10 or 11 years old, and one day I'm out there with him in the garden, and he hands me the pitchfork, and he says, you know, if you'll spade up this piece right here, it's about 8 by 8, he said, I'll give you some seeds.
Oh, my
That you can
gosh.
make a start. And I did. Well, that was the beginning. Now you see the
Yeah.
fruits of that initial
Right,
planting.
right.
Well, anyhow, that was terrific, and I just went on from there.
Oh, that's good.
So I started out as a vegetable grower, like so many people do.
Yeah.
And I came to Hydrangeas, Nantucket. I went there on vacation back, oh my goodness, the early 1960s, and I saw how well they grew there. I'd fooled with them already, but nothing like Nantucket had.
So you were an engineer at this time working for a
I'm an
company.
engineer now. I spent most of my engineering life in the papermaking industry.
Oh, you're kidding.
Very unrelated to what we're doing today. But you know how it all goes, the things that
Well,
you do.
no, yeah, it's funny because I'm from Ohio, and we had a neighbor next door, and he worked in the paper industry. He was an engineer. He was He has PhD, but he did something with paper in manufacturing of paper.
Right.
And he would go to Canada. He would go to
Sure.
upstate New York and all that area. So is that where you worked, or did you work in New Jersey?
I've worked in a lot of places. I actually went to Canada, and I lived in Canada for a short time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and but I traveled all over North America. Did a lot in the paper making industry. My expertise became in the process of making paper on the paper machine.
Yeah.
And I did that too for, it was almost 40 years that I was in that business.
Gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, it's like I say, it's where we start and where we end can be very different travels.
That's true.
So, and I'm very happy that I sort of chose to do what I did, because as I came further and further along, and I was seeing time that maybe it was time for me to leave the paper industry. Everything has some age dependency and the whole rest of it. I had something very easy to fall to that I really, really liked.
And you love to do it.
And I love to do it.
So you went on vacation in the 60s to Nantucket, wild and crazy 60s, and you fell in love with an island that has no people on it at that time.
Well,
I mean, it
did. It's surprising. It did. And nothing like it is today.
No. Not all the rich and famous.
No. I mean, summertime then, probably the population doubled, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of old summer homes, some great old stuff that was there. It went back for some time. Today it's very different. I suspect the island's population swells by a factor of 4, maybe even 5, summertime now. I miss it in some ways. I had a great garden. We had our nursery there, Hydrangea Farm, and I'd cut it out of the woods. I had bought the piece of land when it was all woods, and hewed it out of there, and we lived on the property.
Oh, so you had a home there.
Yeah, and so we had the plant nursery. We had a wonderful touring garden, because one of the things I was convinced of, the more plants I had in the ground that were good, people could wander around and come back and say, "Boy, I love this one."
That's right.
They see it growing.
Are you sure you weren't a marketing person?
No, I wasn't, but I mean, that made sense to me.
Of course.
That made simple sense to me. And it was a lot of fun creating it. And so I was a collector. One of the good things about my engineering life is, especially in my later years, that I went on the consulting side, I traveled a great deal. It was easy then. I'm talking now a long time ago. Still didn't know. It changed early. 2001 was a change in how we handle stuff from the USDA and plant importing. But prior to that, you could bring plants back home that you gathered from away. You simply had what's called bare rooting them. You had to wash all the soil off.
Right.
But you could bring back, and it was a funny thing, you were allowed to bring 13 plants per person.
Why 13?
I have no idea.
One of those government
one of those things.
regulations.
Yeah, but it was great.
13's a good number.
It was. And so what you do is, I knew how to do this, and you'd prepare them well, and they would get a very simple inspection when they came back. And most of the times they would simply say, "Gee, they look good, you washed them off well, good luck with them."
Yeah.
Well, it's very different today.
Yeah.
I still have a plant import permit from the USDA, but it's a tricky beast today, and they had to do that.
Right.
Because, if you...
For invasive species?
Yeah, for invasive species, but pathogens of all sorts could come along with soil, could come along with the plant.
Right.
And how would you know unless you really
isn't it
had
like
some strictness?
Katsu and all of that down south?
Yeah,
They all came in
well, that's just the truth. A lot of things came here well-intentioned.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
But that's not how it turned out.
Right.
So there was that. But I did that for a long time. So I was really a collector, and I called Hydrangea Farm, my location, a collector's nursery.
Oh.
And it was, because I had been in the good fortune of gathering some extraordinary plants, hydrangeas, that were not common in the US of A. Not common, did not exist in the US of A. And not a lot of them, but a reasonable number of some really good plants. And even to this day, I'm still working on some of those.
Is that right?
For introduction, yeah.
I see. But now you're working on them on Cape Cod.
Yes, and we moved from
you sold to
Nantucket,
Hydrangea.
sold the farm, as one would say, literally and figuratively, and moved to the Cape in 2014.
Excellent.
Like it here, it's good. It was a way of, in quotes, retiring.
Yeah.
retirement is going to be gone from the English language vocabulary in another generation.
Oh, I think it will be too.
You know, retiring as we once knew it.
No.
You're going to retire to doing something different, but equally purposeful as what you did for your main part of your life.
Right.
But pursue it with vigor.
Right. Right.
That's the way. Keep the mind and body going.
That's what my husband says. He's an artist, and he was a newspaper man, as in advertising in newspapers. He was an ad man.
Yep.
And he has always wanted to be an artist, and finally he found the opportunity, and that's what he does now.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's exactly the way it should be.
You know, it should be.
So
That's
it's
what he
exactly
says, you know?
it's exactly the way it should be.
As long as I keep the arthritis under control in my hands, I'm in good shape.
Well, we
so.
keep the brain working too.
Yeah.
I mean, I
that's
think
half the battle, isn't it?
well, I think it's probably more actually. But
yes, it
anyway,
probably is. You're probably
but anyhow, that's sort of how that's sort of a bit of a scenario of how I came to be where I'm at. The nice thing with Heritage was this, that
So how did you get to Heritage?
Yeah,
You
well, I
moved
knew
here.
the Heritage crowd from before.
Ah. because
Going
of
back, I
Hydrangea.
actually sold plants to Heritage
Is that right?
from the farm on
Right.
Nantucket. And so I knew the facility and I knew some of the people. And so when I was coming over, and the other thing I should say too, introduced at the same time. In 2008, actually 2007, Cape Cod Hydrangea Society was formed.
Ah.
Okay? And they had the foresight to come here to Heritage and propose that they would like to foster the development of a hydrangea garden at Heritage. At Heritage.
Right.
And that garden exists today. It's called the Display Garden.
And I've done a show there 2 years ago.
Yes, I bet you did. And the nice thing is that it's still maintained by the Cape Cod Hydrangea Society. I've been a member for a long time. I'm a past president. I've been involved as curator for them as well. But it's a great thing, and that was the start. That's really, there was a few hydrangeas at Heritage before that, but not very many. I mean, when I say a few.
Think of Heritage as hydrangeas now.
Yeah, and now you do.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was the start of it, and then that sort of took on its great purpose and expanded, and it's been wonderful.
Well, and there are some new species of hydrangeas in that garden, are there?
Well, what we have two gardens actually of merit. We have the display garden, which was the oldest. And then first plantings were done in 2008. So they're now, this is the 11th year that that garden's been around. There's been obviously changes and expansions, but that's when we started. In 2015, we had a conference here at Heritage. Dr. Michael Durr and myself put it on, and it was great. And that was sort of the seed that Michael got going. And we created then this new test garden, the North American Hydrangea Test Garden. That sits immediately adjacent to the display garden, just separated by the main road.
Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a great thing. And in there, so we have two distinctions. The display garden is sort of the receptor for great old varieties. None of these would would fall for that. And on the test garden side, it's all the new stuff, particularly purposeful in terms of those having that extra vigor in terms of cold hardiness, ability to rebloom, you know, the sort of the new wave, if you are. And then we can evaluate those somewhat separately. But we still look at the old stuff because even though it's old, a lot of them have wonderful flower forms. They're just not as hardy as we'd like them to be. And needless to say, you can then figure out the rest of the story. If I can take the hardiness from this plant
And put it in
and
that
marry it to the great bloom quality of this one,
Right. You got
maybe
something
I'm
big.
going to have something.
So how do they do that, though?
Well, that's done by specific crosses where, if you will, the pollens are interchanged, and it's done in that fashion. And that's a big thing. Hybridization is a very active pursuit in the horticultural world. We don't do any of it here immediately. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I'll gather seed, it's open pollinated. The bees have done the work.
Right.
And grow off from the seed. It's a chance effect.
Yeah.
You know what the maternal
That's
side
what it
is,
used
but
to
you
be.
never. Well, yes, that's true. That's how a lot of it was done. It was just simply open pollinated, as it's called, meaning the bees or other pollinators did the job. And you know, there's some interesting stuff comes out of that. And there are ways. In fact, there's a technique that's being employed now, where if you have the two selections that you want to cross. You put them in an enclosure that's netted, and then you buy bumblebees, which are great pollinators, and you release them in there, and they do the work.
And they do all the work.
Right.
Oh, that's great.
So you know what the two components are.
Are bees.
Well, no, I mean the two plants that you're trying to marry to get the proper offspring. So it's kind of a neat kind of a wrinkle. Anyway, so there's that part of it. But anyway, let me go back a little bit to the heritage side. So in 2016, we finished the test garden, and that's when we had the inaugural kickoff for it.
Right.
And both gardens. Yes, I think it was.
Yeah, and there was a gentleman from the south that had come up, Virginia or something.
Well, Dr. Durr lives in Georgia.
That was it. That was the gentleman I interviewed.
Right. He's a professor emeritus from University of Georgia in Athens.
Right.
He lives in Bogart. It's just a suburb of it. And he's been instrumental and very helpful to us here, and continues to be. And he will be up, coming up this coming weekend, spends a couple days this time of the year with us.
So, are you involved because of the Hydrangea Society? Are you involved because now you're kind of with Heritage too?
It's a bit of both, but it's largely, I'm an employee of Heritage. I mean, I'm Curator of Hydrangeas.
Oh my gosh, okay, great.
And it works out great.
That's an official title, because you seem to know a lot.
Well, I do. I am Curator of Hydrangeas, I guess.
There you go.
That's enough of a title. That's enough. Anyway, they call me Mal the Hydrangea guy, or the Hydrangea Whisperer, whatever you like.
Oh, Hydrangea Whisperer, I like that.
Yeah, any of those. But it worked out pretty well, and it's a great kind of thing. Because of the expansion of hydrangeas at Heritage, it's good for them to have somebody like me.
Sure.
And for me, it's good to have a purpose like this.
Sure.
How can you beat that?
You can't.
You can't. It's the best thing going.
You can't.
So it's been a great thing. And we do a lot of good things at Heritage. I've introduced and we've expanded somewhat. We call it the Hydrangea Success Series, where we do individual events. Starts with pruning and we finish with winter protection. Yeah. We have 5 other subjects in between that group that we talk about.
The people come in and take the class.
They take the class, and we do them, usually we do them, it can be weekends, Saturday and Sundays. Sometimes it's a Thursday and a Saturday. We mix it up a little bit. Yeah. And we get a great turnout for it.
Oh, I bet.
Just as an example, we started, the first time we did pruning, we do that in April, that's the kickoff event. We had 8 people, one session. This year we had 4 sessions and a total of 106 people.
Oh my gosh.
So it shows you where some things
word of
have
mouth
gotten to.
really works.
Well, and you know, it's promoted on our website, and people get used to it. But word of mouth, you're exactly right, has done a lot of good for it. What my concept is very simple. I want people to be more successful in growing hydrangeas in their gardens.
Right.
Why not?
Easy.
It's the Cape.
That's the Cape. So right now is the Hydrangea Festival, Cape Hydrangea,
yes.
Cape Cod Hydrangea Festival.
It's a great, I'll tell you, it's a wonderful event, and the real tribute for this event getting going was C.L. Fernari, who was well known here, the garden lady on the Cape. And C.L. is a hard worker. I think the world of what she's done. She's really perseveres. Anyway, she got the inspiration of this, of going to Buffalo, New York, where they have something like it, but it's not specific to any plant genus. It's just the gardens opened. She thought what a great idea it was. And so she brought it here, and being the quintessential woody ornamental of the Cape is hydrangeas. This is what we would do. So this is year 5.
Right. Well, I'm with the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce.
So you know it well.
So I know it well. And I remember when they first rolled it out for the chamber. And I was kind of thinking, well, gee, will anybody participate, in the very beginning? And oh my gosh, it has now grown to, sometimes you can't get tickets for the garden tours. They're sold out.
Yeah, they're up to close to 80 gardens that will be open this year. I think it's terrific. But CL deserves, Cape Cod Chamber's done a great job. I mean, they are the principal movers. But the initial concept side of it was CL.
Is that right? I guess I knew that kind of in the back of my mind because of the chamber.
Yeah, she's done a great job with it. And she's the main speaker tomorrow.
Oh, really?
For Hydrangea U. Yeah, I'm not speaking this year. I have in the past. This is the 4th event. And this is a joint effort between Heritage and the Cape Cod Hydrangea Society.
I see. That's great.
And it's a really good one. It's a good turnout.
It's a good partnership.
It's an excellent partnership. Those are the kind of things that work. You need those sort of synergies that make sense, and this one does. They have a limit, 175, and they've reached that, so it's a sellout.
Isn't that amazing?
I think it's terrific. And they make a good full day of it. The Hydrangea University is the morning program, and then the afternoon we're down in the garden for individual tours and walkabouts. So it's good stuff, and I'll certainly be there. I've been a speaker in the past years, but I wanted to get some new, they need new blood from time to time. And
oh, come on.
oh, they do. They
do. Listen, I can sit and listen. You've got a great voice, so I can sit and just listen to you talk about them.
But the good thing is there's other people that have something good to say too.
Oh,
and why not?
Of course.
You know, and why not? So
got to share that spotlight.
Well, you do. And the other thing is I'm there tomorrow, and we'll be doing some tours down in the garden. So if people can come tomorrow, is a great day. I mean, every day is going to be good. Let me share a little bit more with you too.
Sure.
Every day, and Heritage is very committed to the Cape Cod Hydrangea Festival. So every morning there's some simple walkabouts with docents where they sort of give you both gardens a little flavor of what we're doing. And then in the afternoon, from usually 1:30 to 2:30 each day, we have a specific subject, and I think we've got 3 this year. We rotate them over that time, where we talk about specific things, and I'm involved with most of those, and some of the other staff people are part of it too. But those are great walkabouts.
Nice.
So the people get a chance to hear from us, but see firsthand. Let's talk about, you know, this particular beautiful Paris, color red, quite good, you know, that kind of thing. And talk about its hardiness, or where we've seen it growing best. Maybe in a container in your house is the best location. Right. That kind of thing.
Fabulous.
Yeah. So it's a good program. We get some great turnouts for it. Last year, one of the sessions I did, and it was middle of the week. I couldn't get over it. Actually, I had too many people. I had 40 people in the group. That's a little. 40 people. You know, you can deal with 30. No, and then keep it together, because what happens, it breaks up, as you know. But 40, we did pretty well, but it was, you know. So there's good turnout for this stuff. That's just the good part.
That's wonderful. Well, it's just so great to know that there is so much interest, not only in hydrangeas, but in the ecology of the Cape. And
oh, absolutely.
And it is so important, because when you fly over the Cape, you can just see how delicate and fragile it is. It really, really is.
Well, I think you make a great point, Melinda, about the fragility or the sensibility that we have to have. You know, we hear a lot about the global warming and all of that. The good thing that's come out of this, I'm not sure about all the numbers that I've heard, but here's the good news. The fact that people are aware of it and acting upon it. That's the key thing. Yeah. And it means something to us in the gardening sense, because how better, or what better way can you personally contribute than in that fashion? Right. In what you do in your own property. Right. Okay? Right. Stop using some of the pesticides. Right. Change around your mode of application of what you're doing. Right. Taking a look at the whole spectrum of what you got growing in your garden. Yeah. Yeah. So there's some good stuff. There's some really good stuff about it. That's the part, I think, that's the powerful current. Sure. That's the good news.
That's the good news.
And
well,
it is.
You know what the good news is? That I got to talk to you today.
Well,
and
good.
Meet you.
Good.
This has been, you're a charming man, and you know so much about hydrangeas. And I just want to thank you for taking your time out of your busy day to come here and talk with us. And the Cape Cod Hydrangea Festival goes till...
It begins tomorrow.
It begins tomorrow.
And it goes through the following Sunday. In other words, it's 9 days. The 21st is the last day.
And if you want more information, go to the Heritage Museums and Gardens website.
Yep. Or come out and see us.
Come out.
Come out and see us.
Just go.
And as I say, there's so many good gardens to go and see too. Yeah. Take advantage of that.
Yeah, that would be the fun thing, I think.
I think so. There's some great stuff to see. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you, sir.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure too.
Yeah.
Mal Condon, what a sweet, wonderful man. And he's got a twinkle in his eye, I'm telling you. He knows everything there is to know about hydrangeas. And to think he was an engineer for a long time, it's just kind of hard to believe. I am so glad that he moved to the Cape from Nantucket and that he's working with heritage museums and gardens to bring you all the information you need to know about having a hydrangea garden. So I thank you for joining me today, and catch me next time on another Cape Conversations.